Hey guys, what's up? For the first time in these lectures, I just want to teach you how to trade the modern Philidor. So how does it happen? It became very popular, especially on a certain level, because when people don't know what to do and they just want to play like a playable type of game, they just go with e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, and instead of going with pairs with g6, with the check defense with c6, they just go with knight bd7 followed by e5. So it's usually done by those who don't know theory, but they just know that breaking in the center with e5 should be good. Also, they can immediately play e5 and don't even think that you should be taking on e5, because this type of an endgame is considered to be absolutely fine for black. No matter that you broke the castle, that you forced that king to go on e8, on bishop c4, believe it or not, they can even play bishop e6, and position like this is known to be great for black, because all they have to do is play bishop d6, king e7, and play knight bd7 afterwards. So how do you play? So you play e5, and white has to play knight f3. In here, after knight bd7, I want to teach you something new. It's rook g1 system. It became very popular lately. It's considered to be one of the most dangerous things against the modern Philidor. And the thing and the point about this rook g1 is that you want to break and unleash your kingside attack with g4. What makes this system being so special is the fact that it used to be popular as a Shiro attack, in different circumstances. When I talk about that, I basically mean that they used to go with this one with straight g4. But why would you sack a pawn and go into positions that are more or less considered to be fine for black if they know the theory? Play rook g1. You want to go with g4. You want to launch the kingside action, and that's the way it is. And a very logical thing, bishop e7. You just go g4, and if they go castle, I consider king on g8 being in kind of a danger. So you play g5. Very simple chess, reminds me of an English attack against Sicilians. If the knight goes on e8, what do you have to do? Just play bishop e3, play h4. You want to play h5 and break with g6. Well, at the same time, you should decide whether place your queen on e2, d2, and play long castle. If the knight goes on h5, I'll show you, for example, I like bishop e3, queen e2, and long castle plan. But I'll show you a game of Bernatsky. He went for the knight on h4, and after the guy played g6, he went for knight f5. I like this plan because you cannot take, of course, that after queen h5, white would have almost a lethal attack here. And when they play knight b6, Bernatsky went for bishop e2. Still, knight is threatened on h5. And after knight g7, he went for knight g7, king g7, bishop e3, f5, captured, played d5, queen d2 threatened bishop h6, went for long castles, and he killed this guy so bad. Played f4, open up the game, played f5, and here after queen d3, black resigned because he couldn't find the defense of g takes f5, bishop h6, because he couldn't find the defense of f takes g6. d6 was weak anyways, and that was a nice win. So typically rook g1 prepares for g4, and they can't play bishop e7. I'd say it just goes under the attack, and like pretty much makes the whole plan with the rook g1 being absolutely like likable. That's one thing. Another thing, if rook g1 and they go, for example, h5 to stop g4, okay, you stop g4, but I'll play h3 and my next move will be g4. What makes this position being even more special for us is that they can't prevent g4, and if they try to do it by this h4, because now makes no sense to play g4 because they will take en passant, you play bishop c4, you threaten knight g5. They gotta do something, But for example, they can play bishop e7. I want to blitz game. You give check, check, 96, 97, and take like this. Point is that in normal circumstances, pawn would be on h7, not on h4, and rook would be on h1, and they have queen e8, queen g6. Here, that's not a case. You take, and when they take by pawn, you just have 95 and you're winning. If they take by knight, you play 95, and they don't have time for bishop b7. Simply, they're falling apart in this type of the game. And that's why after h4, bishop c4, they gotta take. You take by queen. It's a golden rule. You always take by queen when they cannot play knight c6. So after this, knight g5, bring your bishop back, threaten f4. Now they don't have h6, and basically your knight on g5 causes lots of problems to these guys. So after h3, let's say they go c6, most flexible and typical, you just go a3. I like a3. Of course you go g4, h takes, and of course you may play like this. Normal game and everything is fine. But if you play a3 to prevent b5 and b4 with tempo, bishop e7, you just go bishop e3, queen c7, and you just go bishop c4. What I like about a3, it doesn't give them b5, b4 with tempo. Second thing, when you play like b5, you'll hide your bishop and put it in shelter on a2. And then you just go with knight g5 and g4, and you launch the attack. If they go with a more or less, like preventive h6, you just go g4 straight away, play bishop e3, put your queen, whether you want to do it on e2 or on d2, and of course make sure to make the long castles. I like it so much, and unlike Shirov's attack where you sack the pawn on g4, here you don't do it. That's why currently one of the most critical variations in the world against Philidor is rook g1. Let's say they take on d4. Looks like you just wasted your time with a rook on g1. I'd never say it's a waste of time. They go knight c5, going after the pawn. Here, I analyzed these positions quite in details and came up with queen e2, which looks very interesting. It defends the pawn. It supports some e5 at some point, not immediately. It gives me possibility to develop this bishop, I don't know, an f4, g5, e3, whatever. It supports g4 at some point, which means that the queen is going to defend the pawn on g4, and gives me castle, in which case d file would be open and queen on d8 would find itself under the x-rays. So after bishop e7, you go f3. Why? Because you want to go g4, support that, because of course f3 we needed to go with the bishop e3, so we overprotect pawn on e4, so we can play bishop e3 long castle. I can consider g4, I can consider queen f2, I want to play g5 afterwards, maybe even h4, h5 and stuff like that, but any circumstance this should be great. Queen e7, looks like they want to get the pawn. You just play g4. That's a great thing because they don't have time to take by c-pawn. You play g5 and they're lost. They lose the knight. If they go with knight fd4, you play knight d5, queen d8, and they lose the knight. So they can't take. They gotta play c6, and now they threaten to take, but now it's too late. Now I overprotect e4, and after this play bishop f4, just like in Fianchetto King's Indian. Pawn on d6 turns out to be weak. And finally, there is the last line, rook g1, g6. Here, I want to show you a game of always creative Richard Rapport. So he just went with g4, bishop g7, g5. He's isolating this knight on h5. And Rapport played bishop to e3. What's so special about this one? After short castle, Rapport went for queen d2. Black played c6 and he went long castle. Here I want to show you 2 games and actually 3 games, and to absolutely complete this modern Philidor and treatment in the most fashionable way at the moment in the world. So when you play long castles, they have queen a5 and they have b5 or rook e8. Rook e8 turns out to be a logical move, create some pressure against e4. You take, and now you play bishop h3. That's what I like. You don't have in natural circumstances something like this. You just pressure the knight on d7. They gotta play queen e7. You can't take because of rook d8, but you go here and you go into a favorable type of an endgame. Bishop c8, rook d1. Possession of the d file is yours. They have lots of problems, and Gonzalez Vidal won this game in a fairly nice fashion. Even in ideal circumstances, if they manage to do 96 rook d8, a7 pawn is going to be hanging. If they play a6, you stick your bishop on b6. If they play b6, you play a4, a5, followed by knight a4, and you kill them on the dark squares. Ruppert in the game was queen e7, and Ruppert here played a very interesting a4. I always like this type of move because it prevents b5 and it creates shelter for the bishop on a2 if needed. Although the guy played a5 and he decided to go like this. So now I actually understood Ruppert's move a4 more like a defensive approach rather than preparing for bishop c4. Played king to b1 and here went for h4. Still nothing. Now Ruppert realized that the bishop on e2 wasn't doing much and he moves it to c4. Bishop h3, he finds it better place. This guy played the knight d7 and Ruppert decided to break with d5. Point was, what if c5? Nothing. Then your knight controls this, bishop controls the light squares. Well, you absolutely have to find a way to jump with the knight on c4, and this one goes on b5. That's a typical strategy. After knight c5, he captured, played queen e3, threatens d6 and to take on c5, knight f4, played knight e2, and he found an ideal positional way to kill his opponent. And that's exactly what happened. Played rook to d6, penetrated there on the d file, and after he played like this, played knight f6 with absolutely devastating consequences for black. So this guy resigned. Nice game by Ruppert in desperation. And finally, queen a5. Queen a5 makes sense because it supports b5, b4 and creates some pressure against the a2 pawn. You go a3, which usually looks very dangerous because it gives b5 and b4 with tempo. But the thing is, after b5, d5, they can't play c5 because b5 would be hanging, and simply they have to play b4. In that case, absolutely feel free to take because c6 is hanging. If queen a1, you have knight b1 with absolutely safe king. And in the case of bishop b7, if they try to keep some sort of, let's just call it tangent, you just take on c6, take on b5, offer them to exchange queens. They cannot avoid it because d6 is hanging. And after knight e2, g takes, knight a7, knight c4, already that winning position for white in a game Sitchev against Bologan. Hope you enjoyed in this short lecture, and I just gave you like the right ways of trading these systems and how should you play against the modern Philidor. So rook g1, not an immediate g4 to sack the pawn, even though it looks more attractive, but this one is at the moment currently the most critical variation in the world against this modern Philidor. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and some donations, huh? Yep, bye-bye.